My debit card declined at the pharmacy while a line of neighbors watched me fumble with coins like a child counting bus fare. The young clerk cleared his throat, trying to be kind while the woman behind me whispered, loud enough for everyone, that I'd probably mixed up my card with that school fund card Mrs. Whitfield runs. I felt heat rise to my face. I knew my balance. I keep a notebook where I write every expense in pencil and erase clean when it's reconciled. I used to balance 3 cash drawers before lunch as a credit union teller. I don't mix up cards. Want me to try again, Mrs. Whitfield? The clerk asked, avoiding my eyes. Please. Declined again. I put back the blood pressure tablets and paid cash for the cheaper generic, feeling the weight of the room. At the door, I nearly bumped into my daughter-in-law, Trina, radiant in workout leggings and the kind of smile that shows teeth, not warmth. Elaine, did you forget your pin again? She asked brightly, squeezing my arm like she was helping an untamed dog cross the street. You should have told us. Max can put protections on your accounts so this doesn't happen. The way she said protections made the clerk look down. I nodded, small, and walked out into the wind with my paper bag cutting into my fingers. At the corner, someone jogged up behind me. It was the junior teller from the credit union, a quiet girl with a braid and sensible shoes who had started last spring. She pretended to adjust her scarf, slipped something into my palm, and kept walking. On the folded receipt was a pencil line, come at 4 p.m. alone. I went home, sat at my kitchen table, and opened the notebook I've kept since 1978. Somewhere between Trina's birthday card stamp and Lucas's clarinet reeds were 2 lines I hadn't written: scholarship debit card, replacement issued, and POA inquiry. I stared at the words until they went blurry. The town liked to talk about my little scholarship as if it were a mason jar of coins. It wasn't. It was the Morrow's Whitfield Music Scholarship, a proper charitable trust with its own account, set up after my husband, Peter, died. He'd been a band teacher for 30 years. The trust was my way of keeping his Saturday morning trumpet lessons alive in other children, especially the shy ones who stand last chair and pretend not to mind. At 4 p.m., I went to the credit union. The junior teller led me to a tiny break room, shut the door, and looked at me with a mixture of worry and resolve. You didn't hear this from me, Mrs. Whitfield. Someone called yesterday asking about adding a second card to the scholarship account. Today there were 2 cash withdrawals. And there's a note on your profile. Prospective durable POA family. My hand stilled on the paper cup of water. Durable power of attorney. I had taught a workshop about that at the senior center. I knew the dangers. I smiled at the girl because my voice wouldn't work yet. Who? I managed. She swallowed. The request came from a man who said he was your pastor. He faxed something on church letterhead. I knew immediately who it was. Deacon Roy, who had helped me draft the scholarship documents at the church office, tapping his pen as if the speed of my decisions were an emergency. He was always there with a clipboard, always checking in, always reassuring me we'll handle things. Mrs. Whitfield, the teller hesitated. There's more. I braced myself. The fax included a capacity assessment letter. Signed by Max. My son is an emergency nurse. He knows better than to sign anything about my mind without an actual evaluation. I felt something cold slide into place behind my ribs. The girl handed me a printed slip she shouldn't have printed. 2 withdrawals, both at the ATM near the upscale spa on Main Street. For $100 each. Thank you, I said quietly. What's your name? Mara, she whispered. I started piano on your scholarship when I was 12. We both stood in that cramped room, 2 women at different ends of a line that began with a trumpet teacher who used to hum while he fixed sticking valves at our kitchen table. I folded the slip into my notebook, my hands no longer shaking. And then Mara said the thing that changed everything. There's a compliance review tomorrow. If you come at 10, my manager will, accidentally, be in the lobby. I closed my notebook and looked at her carefully. She was making a choice that could cost her job. I could see the flicker of fear in the set of her mouth. I squeezed her hand. I'll be there. When I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the church bell rang the quarter hour, and across the street I saw Deacon Roy pinning a poster to the bulletin board. Morrow's Whitfield Scholarship Gala, Saturday. The word gala had not been my idea. My name on a poster I hadn't approved. A trust one had signed once, carefully, and meant to guard. I turned toward home with a decision forming like a clean, sharp edge. By breakfast the next morning, all the small humiliations that had been scattered like pebbles became a path pointing in one direction. The family group chat I had never silenced pinged with gentle reminders. Trina wrote, "Max and I will stop by before your bank thing to handle paperwork." My niece Tara sent a heart, then deleted it. I stared at the thread, a neat timeline of suggestions the last 2 months. Take photos of your bills so we can manage online. No need to keep that old checkbook. Set your phone to Face ID so we can help. Suddenly all the help had a shape. At 9:30, there was a knock. Max stood in my doorway in scrubs, a coffee stain on his sleeve, and the face of a man who believes he's the good guy. Trina came in behind him with a folder and a smile arranged for witnesses. "Mom," Max said, "too brisk. This is just to make things easier. You forget your PIN a lot. Last week you called me because you couldn't find the health insurance card." "It was under the phone bill," I said, not unkindly. "I found it." Trina slid papers onto the table. Durable power of attorney, medical directive, and trustee amendment. "You'll still be involved," she chirped, "but it'll be so much smoother if Max is point on the scholarship stuff. And church needs decisions quick for the gala vendors." I looked at the trustee amendment. It named Max and Deacon Roy as co-trustees for administrative efficiency. The signature line had a yellow sticker that said "Sign here," with a cheerful arrow. The notary block bore a stamp I recognized. It belonged to a woman at church who set up a booth near the cookies. Notaries aren't supposed to notarize signatures they haven't seen signed, but in small towns, lines blur as neatly as the ink on a damp stamp. "Give me the pen," I said. Max exhaled with relief, shoulders dropping. Trina's smile softened. As I reached for the pen, I made my face look old and little, the way people expect from women my age when they are tired of fighting. I signed, not on the line. I signed firmly across the entire text, a diagonal line that made the document void without saying a word. Then, keeping my voice sweet as tea, I flipped the page and signed the medical directive where Max had written his name in the agent line. Instead of his name, I printed Tara Morrow's alternate. Then I folded the papers and put them back in the folder. "I'll have my attorney review these this afternoon," I said. "You can pick them up tomorrow." Trina blinked. Max frowned, confused. "What attorney?" "The one the scholarship paid for when it became a charitable trust," I said lightly. "Remember? Legal counsel for the board, which includes me." Max glanced at Trina, then at the folder. "Mom, we don't need to make this adversarial." "This isn't adversarial," I said. "It's administrative." He hesitated, then nodded like we'd just agreed on what to order for dinner. They left in a hurry, Trina hugging me too tightly at the door. I drove to the credit union. The lobby smelled of coffee and floor polish. Mara was at her window, eyes steady. The manager accidentally emerged with a file. "Mrs. Whitfield," he said, "we've received a letter regarding your capacity to manage your finances. Standard procedure is to flag accounts until verification. May I see the letter?" He hesitated, then turned a page toward me. It didn't take a psychologist to see the tells. The font didn't match the hospital's, there was no letterhead watermark, and Max's signature had the wrong credential after his name. Nurses write those letters rarely, and never like that. "There's also a second debit card on your scholarship account," the manager said carefully. "Issued yesterday." "To whom?" He kept his tone flat. "To a Roy Daniel. The address is the church office." We looked at each other a moment. "Remove it," I said. "Please freeze the account except for existing tuition drafts. I'll bring you board minutes authorizing signers." He nodded. "I'll need them by Friday. You'll have them by Thursday." On my way home, I stopped at the church to pin a note on the bulletin board under the gala poster. Scholarship Board meets Thursday, 6 p.m., open session. I sent a text to Tara. She works as an accountant at a manufacturing plant and never says more than needed. Me, "Do you have 15 minutes today?" At my kitchen table. Tara, "Yes." 5 p.m. By late afternoon, the town was buzzing. At the grocery checkout, two women I've known for years pretended to compare yogurt while discussing how sad it was that I was slipping. It is a peculiar experience to hear your mind tried in the dairy aisle. I paid, nodded to them as if they hadn't carved me like a roast, and carried my bags home without help. The weight steadied me. At 5 p.m., Tara sat at my table, opened her laptop, and pulled out a small calculator like a doctor laying out instruments. "And Elaine," she said, "what do you need?" "I need to see where the money went." She typed. Numbers lined up in quiet rows. 2 ATM withdrawals yesterday, she said, near the spa. 3 months ago, several payments labeled consulting to an LLC registered at the Deacon's dealership. And a series of small purchases at a boutique Trina posts about on Instagram. I closed my eyes for a second. "Show me the registrations." She did. The LLC's registered agent was the Deacon's nephew. The boutique owner had posted a thank you to Trina last week for supporting local, with 8 bags in one photo. "If this is what it looks like," Tara said, "it isn't just messy. It's a breach of fiduciary duty," I finished. I taught that phrase to the scholarship board the year we set it up, the duty to act in the best interest of beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are 12-year-olds with trumpet cases, not deacons and leggings. Tara looked at me, her mouth set. "I'll help you." Quietly. "Why?" I asked, though I knew. "Because Uncle Peter taught me my first 3 chords and never made me feel stupid. And because people are talking about you like you're—" She stopped, jaw tight. "I don't like how they're talking." We planned. She'd prepare a simple report with dates and pays. I'd meet a lawyer I knew from my teller days who now ran a tiny practice above the hardware store. Mara would bring her manager's memo confirming the second card. We'd call a board meeting and invite the church finance committee to observe, because sunlight works faster when the room is crowded. As Tara packed her laptop, my phone buzzed. A new email notification lit the screen, then disappeared. I checked the inbox. Nothing. Then I checked trash. There it was, an email to the scholarship account forwarding the trust deed to an unknown Gmail. The subject line, scanned. It had been auto-deleted 1 minute after arriving. "Someone has my email password," I said. Tara stood very still. "That's not clumsy. That's coordinated." I sat at the kitchen table after Tara left, the empty file drawer pulled all the way out, the dusty bottom exposed like a rib. I had made 2 copies of the trust deed, one with the board and one in my safe deposit box. The copy in the drawer had been for convenience. The safe deposit box key was in my jewelry dish, a small brass shell. I lifted the dish. The key was gone. For a moment, my vision tunneled, the way it does when you stand too fast. I steadied my hands against the table and felt the old training return. Count. Breathe. List the facts. The facts were simple. Someone had been in my house. Someone had my key. Someone wanted original documents that could be swapped. At 8 p.m., I called a number I don't use lightly. Patel and Reeves, a calm voice answered. "This is Elaine Whitfield. I need to see Miss Patel as soon as possible. It's about a charitable trust and a stolen document." There was a pause, then a shift in tone. "Mrs. Whitfield, she can see you at 8:30 tomorrow." I slept badly, but I slept. In the morning, I put on the gray cardigan Peter liked and pinned my hair back the way I do when I'm done being underestimated. Ms. Patel listened without interrupting, occasionally underlining a line in her notebook. At the end, she folded her hands. "You did 2 smart things," she said. "You froze the account except for essential drafts. You scheduled a board meeting and made it open. Today, we'll rekey your safe deposit box. The bank will require your ID and 2 staff witnesses. I'll meet you there. As for the attempted POA, sign nothing. And do not confront your son yet. We will let the minutes and the numbers do that for you." "And the deacon?" I asked. The word tasted like something too sweet left in the sun. "We will handle facts, not titles," she said. At the bank, we rekeyed the box. The original trust deed was there, crisp and unmolested. MS. Patel had me sign across the flap of a sealed envelope and place the deed inside with a copy of her business card, then logged the serial of the envelope. We made certified copies with a bank stamp and 2 signatures, chain of custody recorded in ink. This is what intellectual revenge looks like, a neat pile of lawful procedure. Over the next 24 hours, I collected small victories like smooth stones. The notary at church texted to reschedule our signing, and I replied with MS. Patel's card. Mara slipped me a copy of the internal memo noting the issuance and removal of the deacon's card. Tara finished her report, 3 pages, clear, merciless. Unusual transactions read the heading, a phrase polite enough for a Sunday bulletin, sharp enough for a courtroom. There were new blows, too. At noon, a clerk from the county courthouse delivered a packet to my mail slot, petition for appointment of guardian, in re. Elaine P. Whitfield. The petition cited episodes of confusion, such as the pharmacy incident and a misplaced payment for my water bill. It had been delayed by a city system update. I had the receipt. Attached was an affidavit by Deacon Roy, and my chest squeezed so hard I sat down one by Max. I turned to the kitchen window. My backyard looked as ordinary as ever. The neighbor's wind chime clinked 3 notes. I am not easily frightened, but that afternoon I felt something ancient and fierce wake up inside me. If they wanted court, they would have court. At 5, I went to the community center. The board meeting room was already half full because the flyer in the grocery had done its work. Our little town loves a meeting that might turn dramatic. I took my seat at the end of the long table. Miss Patel sat to my left. Tara and Mara came in separately, not looking at each other. Deacon Roy entered with a stack of glossy gala programs. Trina arrived last in a white blouse, as if she were there to offer hospitality rather than extraction. "Let's begin," I said, my voice steady enough to surprise me. There is a moment, right before you step into your own defense, when time stretches thin as sugar pulled into glass. I watched Max take a chair near the back. For the first time since this started, he looked small in his scrubs. Trina sat beside him, her hand on his knee. Deacon Roy cleared his throat, all benevolent authority. "Friends," he began, "our dear Elaine has been overwhelmed with the administrative side of her beautiful fund. We're here to ensure the scholarship continues in capable hands." "Thank you, Roy," I said, "but I'll handle the agenda." I clicked on the old projector. The first slide was the mission statement, Peter, and I drafted the night we signed the trust, to remove financial barriers for students seeking private music instruction. I read it aloud because words matter when people hope you've forgotten them. Item 1, I continued, confirmation of authorized signers. Ms. Patel slid the certified copy of the trust across the table. I placed it under the document camera so the room could see the bank stamps, the signatures, the dates. The authorized signer is the trustee, which is me, until the board votes otherwise with a 2/3 majority. There is no co-trustee. There has never been one. A murmur. The deacon's smile faltered for a blink, then reset. Item 2, I said, review of expenditures. Tara stood, not looking at Max, and walked through her report. Tuition drafts to 3 instructors, exactly as budgeted. Instrument rental fees. Then the anomalies. Payments to RD Consulting LLC for outreach, $2,000 across 4 months. The registrations to the deacon's nephew's address appeared on the screen. ATM withdrawals at the spa ATM, which, as Mara had quietly told me, was chosen because it waives fees if you buy a day pass. No receipts, Tara said. No board approval in minutes. The room shifted in their chairs, soundless as an intake of breath. I watched as eyes moved from the screen to the deacon's face, gauging, weighing. "This is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "We retained a consultant to modernize our donor outreach. Every church does this." "The trust is not a church fund," I said. "It is a charitable trust with its own governance. Show us the contract." He tapped his stack of programs, then placed his palms up. "Paperwork must be in the office." "I can bring it next time." Item 3, I said. Bank irregularities. Mara's manager stepped forward with a letter on credit union letterhead confirming a second card had been issued and removed within 24 hours. He said nothing more. He didn't need to. The deacon's jaw flexed. "That was a clerical error," he began. "I was simply trying to assist in." "In what?" A voice from the back cut in. It was the choir director, a man who never interrupts, his eyebrows raised like 2 little tenths of disbelief. I did not smile. Item 4, I said, petition for guardianship. I placed the county packet on the document camera and turned to the page with the affidavits. You could have heard a string break. Max reached forward instinctively, then stopped himself. My son believes I lack capacity, I said, keeping my voice level. He cites incidents arranged by others, a card declined when someone else froze it, a missing deed when someone else removed my key. He submitted a letter about my mind without an exam. He is a good nurse. He knows this isn't how that works. Max stood abruptly, his chair scraping. Mom, he began, then saw Tara's spreadsheet still on the screen, with a line item that read boutique purchases, Trina Whitfield. The dates matched days Trina had dropped by to help with my phone. Trina's mouth flattened. Those were gifts, she said, voice pitched for pity. For donors. The donors were children, I said softly. They wear second-hand shoes and practice on used clarinets. They don't need silk scarves. Laughter, quick, sharp, broke near the door and was smothered by hands. The deacon spread his hands, pastoral. We all make mistakes. Mistakes, I agreed, are when we forget to log a receipt. Breach is when you take what isn't yours. Fraud is when you forge a letter to the bank and the court. Max's face crumpled then hardened. I never forged anything, he said. Roy told me the church lawyer had a template we could use to expedite things. He said you were mixing up your meds. He said we'd be liable if you mismanaged funds. I believed him. The room swiveled toward the deacon. His smile was gone. One more thing, I said. I held up my notebook. The old one, with pencil lines written years before. Between two entries I hadn't written were the faint impressions of a hand that presses too hard. I'd shaded the page lightly with a charcoal stick, and the ghost letters came up. Card issue sat Trina. Email password Roy. I slid the page under the camera. A simple trick from a teller who'd watched too many check forgers lean too hard. Silence. Not the polite church kind. The kind that means a room has decided what it sees. Then the door opened and a small woman in a pharmacy polo stepped in, clutching a stapled printout. She looked at me, then down at her shoes, then back up. I know this isn't my place, she said, but I saw Ms. Whitfield at the pharmacy last week. Her card didn't work because someone had put a fraud alert. The note on the screen said, family concerns, check in next week. I recognized the telephone number attached to the note. It's the church office. It was the woman behind the counter when my face burned. A stranger, until then. The deacon reached for his jacket. He did not get the chance. The board chair, a math teacher who measures words as carefully as he measures chalk lines, cleared his throat. Motion to remove Mr. Daniel as a financial signatory from any involvement with the trust pending legal review, he said. Second, the choir director. All in favor? Hands went up like wheat under wind. Max sat down, eyes on his knees. Trina stared past me toward some point only she could see. One more motion, Ms. Patel said, voice silk over steel. To appoint a temporary compliance subcommittee, Mrs. Whitfield, Ms. Moros, Mr. Alvarez from the choir, to review all transactions in the last 12 months, request restitution where appropriate, and forward any findings to the county prosecutor as required by law. Silence, then a sea of hands. The vote carried like a door closing. We didn't press charges ourselves. We didn't need to. The compliance subcommittee met for 3 evenings in a row at my kitchen table. Tara's spreadsheets grew tabs like lily pads. The boutique refunded what it could to make the problem go away. The deacon's nephew dissolved the LLC and returned the fees under the polite title donation, which our attorney accepted only with a signed admission that services rendered were none. MS. Patel drafted a restitution agreement that requires quarterly payments from the deacon's salary to the trust for 2 years. The church elders asked him to step back from leadership indefinitely. On Sunday, the bulletin bore a short note about stewardship lessons learned. They didn't say my name. They didn't have to. Max withdrew the guardianship petition. He came to my house with hands in his pockets like a boy who broke a neighbor's window. We sat at the table where, a lifetime ago, I taught him to count coins. Mom, he said, I thought I was protecting you. I let fear do the thinking. The worst part, I said, was watching you think I needed to be handled. He nodded, swallowed, then did a thing I didn't expect. He slid a folded paper toward me. It was an apology letter addressed to the board, to the bank, to the clerk at the pharmacy. He had signed it with his full name and restated his credentials correctly. He looked at me, eyes red. I can't fix everything, he said, but I can stand up and say I was wrong. I read the letter, then put it in my file. The one in the drawer, not the safe deposit box. It will live there as a witness. Trina has stopped wearing her fluorescent leggings to church. She manages her smiles more carefully now. At the grocery, the yogurt women lower their voices when I pass, and sometimes one of them nods a small nod that tastes like respect. That's not why I did any of this, but I would be lying if I said it didn't land like a bomb. As for the scholarship, we did not hold a gala. Galas are for peacocks. We held something better, a Saturday in the school auditorium where students played the pieces they've been practicing in living rooms that smell of spaghetti and sheet music. Between songs, I explained, simply and without drama, how the trust works, how parents can apply, how teachers can bill without shame. We posted the annual report on the town website. Numbers, plain as daylight. I made one change to the application this year. There's a box students can check if they need a ride to lessons. We budgeted for a little shuttle, driven by Mr. Alvarez from the choir, who tells the kids about the time the band bus broke down in '97 and they still made it to the competition and played in their socks because their shoes were soaked. The kids laugh and then they play. On Tuesdays, I sit in the credit union lobby with Mara and teach the fraud clinic at a table draped with a blue cloth and a bowl of mints. We talk about how to set alerts, but not surrender access, how to say no in a way that sticks, how to keep a notebook that outlives gossip. People come in with faces set like traps and leave with their mouths half open, breathing easier. My revenge was paperwork and patience, not fireworks, and it tasted like a clean ledger at the end of a long month. When I lock the scholarship file now, the brass key sings against the ring. Some nights, I sit in the quiet and think about Peter's slow whistle while he sorted mouthpieces. If you were sitting here with me, I'd pour you tea and show you the line in my notebook where I wrote, in ink, not pencil, board vote unanimous. I don't sleep with the television on anymore. The house is quiet and honest. Sometimes I ask myself a question before I turn off the lamp. If the next person tries to take something from me, will I see it sooner? I don't know. But I know what I'll do. I'll open my notebook, I'll sharpen my pencil, and I'll start where we always start, the line where it went wrong, and the next line, where we made it right.